What up, folks? No, wait a sec. Oh, I hear my music from my abstract. I was like, dude, it's playing the countdown again. But let's reset. What up, folks? I'm super excited to have you, Eugene. Welcome to the Web3 and Mikey G show. How are you doing, brother?
I'm having the best day ever, always.
Dude, we talked about, it's interesting because we'll talk about psychological thoughts and how we've felt over the past. But I always like to say the glass is half full, and you just hit me with that because I've had some really bad days. And even if I'm having a bad day, I still do like the voice that I'm pretty damn excited about life because we have tons of opportunity, don't we, brother?
Oh, absolutely. But I always like to follow up with the when people are like, "Oh, that's interesting, that's unique." Like,
Yeah.
why are you saying? I'm like, man, if you only know the trauma you had to have to need that mentality every single day.
Exactly.
This guy has seen some shit.
Right. And I think we'll get into this a little bit later, but I didn't realize that that's what my mind was doing because my subconscious was so banged up. I was this overly oh, life's peachy and everything's gonna be great. But deep down inside, boy, was that a different story. But enough. I'm so excited that you're here, man. We're gonna have a tons of conversation. We linked up because I just had an impromptu space one afternoon and you hopped in and we were talking about Web3, and then I saw that you were like a Metaverse expert in the top 15. I didn't even know they ranked at Metaverse experts. And I immediately was like, I need to talk to this guy. And then we had our intro call, and I was like, this is going to be an incredible podcast. We already got people watching. They're obviously excited for what you have to say. But before we get there, just do a little update about what's going on for the rest of the week here. We've got our second episode of Top Unfiltered Minds tomorrow. We got Moose, who's a pretty big abstract creator personality. Gonna talk to, again, this is not like, oh, abstract to the moon, it's the greatest chain ever. It is, Moose, what does your day look like, man? Like, you're constantly streaming, you're all over the place. How do you actually get shit done? And what does that life actually look like? Because I think people really look at this space a lot of times with rose-colored glasses, just life in general. And I want the real talk. So we're going to have the real talk. That's going to be a great podcast tomorrow. We are talking to Corky, who is a fantastic human being from Chain Zoku. He is supposed to come on Thursday, but not highly confirmed yet. But hopefully he comes Thursday night. If not, he will be on. I just talked to the CEO of Lazy Lions. I don't know if you remember that NFT collection. That's an OG NFT
They're
collection.
still around?
Well, here's the thing. This guy has been part of the community. He is one of the guys that actually bought a ton of Bored Apes when he didn't know what he was doing and sold them at the height, like most people did not. And is, I'm sure, sitting on a hefty sum of cash. But he actually bought Lazy Lions because the original CEO tried to sell it, and it's a whole story. But the fact is, he's coming on the podcast. I'm super excited because that's like one of the first ones I remembered. Come full circle 4 years later, he's coming on my podcast. Who would have thought? So those are a couple things that are happening. We'll have some impromptu spaces as well. A lot cooking in the background as usual, working on some things with Rebirth, thinking about how we can make some content series for the Plague fam. So I'm really, really excited. But that's it. That's the last time you'll hear about me. The rest is about the man, the myth, the legend, Eugene. And so what we like to do, we've always done this here on the podcast, is do kind of a quick formal introduction, even though we go very deep after the same question I've been asking for years at this point. But Eugene, creative powerhouse. But like I said, he's one of the top forward thinkers on the Metaverse. And I cannot wait to I don't even know how you even get into that category.
It's a long journey.
Right. And this is
it's
going to be an
yeah.
amazing long journey. You've got a VR talk show. I would love to just come on your talk show, even
Oh,
though I know nothing about VR. And maybe you could just interview me. You could just do the reverse of what we're doing here tonight. We'll see where it goes. I know some about VR, but it's called Glitch. And so I'm excited. I have not even listened to that yet. I got to do that.
I don't think you would be able to, since it was a show that ran for 3 seasons starting in 2016.
Oh, no. Well, that is bullshit.
Sorry.
I thought it was a podcast. I figured just
No,
assume
no,
talk show.
it was the first in VR show to ever be ordered as a traditional TV show.
What?
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk about this. You're just blowing my mind right after step after step. In addition, he has worked with massive, massive corporations like Microsoft, Allstate, Skype, and High Fidelity. Digital futurist, educator, design veteran with over a decade experience. We had a lot of talk about design too, which we both have backgrounds in design, which was an interesting way that we came to like similar but very different paths at the same time. But here's the most important part. He has a lot of cool stuff in his background. And like I said, we'll get deep into it. But this dude is in the third Fire Festival documentary coming up. And that is probably the most important fact that you should know about Eugene. How did I do, Eugene? Is there anything else you want to add before we get into the question, my man?
No, I think you did a great job.
All right. Well, that is it. Get a little water in my system, and we're here, man. The rest is going to be a really cool conversation. And we do that by asking you one simple question. How'd you get the seat you're sitting in today, my man? I reiterate this for the real quick.
I saw somebody that was in your space. I came in. Somebody used the term metaverse incorrectly, and I jumped up and I was like, by the way,
this is not right.
This is the correct way to do it.
And I agree with you that metaverse is just tossed around, and I don't think, by the way, Web3, that term tossed around.
Also, yeah.
I don't, people toss these terms. I was actually having a conversation with my co-founder today about, I just don't even, fundamental, like, I don't know, business principles like red ocean, blue ocean type stuff. Not many people even know what the heck that is. And it's like, guys, we're like, you're building businesses in a tech forward industry. These are some basic principles that you should know about business, but it is what it is. Totally fine. That's why I do what I do, is to get a little bit deeper about the people behind what they do, why they do it, and just think a little bit deeper, man. It's very difficult for people to think deeper this day and age. I don't know why. Maybe we can get on that subject. So he got through the space. He got through the space to this podcast. But to reiterate for the audience who has never heard this before, episode 1 is your childhood. Again, like I told you right before, big question. But I'm interested. Are you a tinkerer? Did you play sports? Vivid memories.
I was a comic book nerd, man.
Well, we'll start with comic books. I think that's a great place to start. Episode 2 is your schooling in your entrepreneurship career or your corporate career or your metaverse career, whatever that may be. And then episode 3 is more of the techie side. We'll call it Web3. We'll call it metaverse. So however you want to define your tech journey, that's where we'll kind of transition into episode 3. And this is where we'll talk deeply about what the hell the metaverse actually is and what it is not. So let's start with episode 1, man. Anywhere you want to go, we can start at comic books if you want to. I cannot wait to hear it, and I will now shut up and just listen to this beautiful journey.
Man, it's I feel like comic books were a big part of my escapism when I was younger. So my dad and his parents, that came to the United States when he was a kid. He grew up, met my mom. together. They had 5 of us. There's 4 of us left. I had a brother that passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
It's cool. He
Brutal.
was,
I'm actually named after my dad's brother that passed away. Brutal.
Yeah.
Life will kick you.
My dad, one of the best people I've ever known in my entire life. Green Beret, Eagle Scout,
Wow.
doctor, paratrooper. And we can get into the paratrooper stuff later because I think that's, it's really, really cool. When he was in med school, my mom was basically raising us, and we were so poor.
Yeah.
And the only place like we kind of like took refuge was my grandparents had made this impromptu buy, and they bought a beach house on the Tulalip Indian Reservation in Marysville, Washington.
Nice.
And so, as a way to stash the family, because we couldn't afford to live anywhere, while my dad was going to school for his dual PhDs, very smart dude. I ended up going to like First Nation schools until I got to high school.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I went to schools where nobody really looked like me.
Yeah.
And it was such a unique experience because the way that somebody like me gets treated, where I'm a minority in one place and then I can like leave the reservation and I'm part of the majority. There is such a duality to how society treats you.
Dude,
and I think
let's peel back that, right? I gotta stop you right now. So reflecting back, let's talk about that. What are your takeaways from that experience? Because that's a deep experience.
It's so interesting. When you meet people who have never kind of like been to a reservation, they ask you like, "Oh, did you have running water? Do you know people who sleep in teepees?" I'm like, "No, everything's modernized. I don't know. You've heard." Just like this like level of ignorance that kind of exists.
It's insane.
But when you're growing up in a place like that, like your school field trips are to like a longhouse to listen to like elders speak, and you get to hear the story of like Raven and Coyote stealing the moon, or you hop on a ferry and you go see, the local totem pole carver, and you see their work, and they give a big presentation, or there's an assembly, and a bell dancer or a hoop dancer will come in and do like a big presentation of this entire culture that is seemingly being washed away every single generation,
right,
bit by bit. And so I think having that unique experience broadened my view of how the world works. Just in terms of how socioeconomic trends kind of like develop different areas, what sort of like trauma gets passed on, because when you go to a school where like there'll be 800 kids and like 100 of them probably have fetal alcohol syndrome or something,
right,
and they're just acting out, and there's this like generational trauma that gets continued to pass down,
right.
It's just very apparent.
Yeah. And so and this is a deep question, so you don't have to go as deep if you don't want to, but you just touched on so many topics, and this is a fascinating topic because I just don't have somebody with your background like this often on the podcast, which is there's this interesting thought in my mind, which is like one of the things that I think modern technology has made us lose is this whole heritage part that you're talking about, right? Like your field trips are to like listening to elders speak. That shit's important, man. And guess what we're not doing with the youth of our generation here in America? doing shit like that, right? But then there's the flip side of, again, like you said, their fetal alcohol syndrome, trauma passed down from generation to generation. How do you keep up with modern times, tech, moving uh moving things forward and progressing and improving and all of those things? And I feel like we've gone into these extremes. It's either one or the other, and there's no in between. Does that make sense at all, or am I just talking out my ass?
I So the way I kind of view things is, I think everybody has 3 cultures.
Mm,
The first one is, your parents got together,
yeah,
they merged their cultures,
yep,
and they passed it down to you.
right,
And that is, and whatever your ancestral, combination of these 2 houses coming together to form a new one before you were, born and getting
right,
passed to you, that's one. The second culture you get is the one of the environment in which you grew up.
yes,
And so for me, dad's not American, mom's American. They got together, they had me. First one.
mhm,
Second one is I grew up on this, Indian reservation. This is very much not a culture that should be mine, but because my formative years being around these people, being around this community, um, it very much will shape you, even if it's not meant to be for somebody like me.
right,
It still affects me, right?
yes,
And then the third one is when you get married, you marry into somebody else's culture, and that becomes the new culture, and
yeah,
then you pass it down to the next generation.
yeah, yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
And so I love that insight. And so for the second one, right? The one
Mhm.
that you lived, now looking back and reflecting, because you grew up with this, which is also a different perspective as well.
Mhm.
Uh, some positives and negatives, or they could all be positives, they could be all be negatives. What are those that someone like me, white dude in middle America,
Mhm.
middle class America, growing up on the East Coast, did not get to experience and think has like given you some different perspectives? I'm fascinated about this.
I think the day to day kind of sucked because, it's clearly like I was not meant for that space,
Right,
but I was in that space, right?
right. Mhm.
And there were people who were meant for that space going, "Why the hell are you here?"
Right.
You know, "You stole our land." And I had to be like, "What are you talking about? My family just got here."
Yeah,
That sort of thing.
yeah.
Um, but on you don't think about this, when you're
Of
young.
course, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
The
Yeah, you
reflecting
don't see
back,
the big
right?
picture until, like,
Right,
years later, and you kinda reflect and you put everything together.
right.
And having that reflection, I feel like is really, really important, because, then I get to have conversations like this.
Yeah,
Or if there's somebody who feels, comfortable in their ignorance and they talk out of turn, and I had to be
yeah.
like, "No, I." They're like, "What do you know?" I'm like, "Well, I grew up there, man." I'm gonna absolutely, put them in their place, right?
Yeah. So what are those reflective thoughts, insights that that you could share, if any?
Um, Reservations are not great places to grow up
Mm,
most of the time.
mm,
Um, there's not enough money usually put into them.
mhm.
And I lived on the Tulalip Indian Reservation before the tribe got a casino.
Mm,
And so, not I feel like every year the reservation gets a little bit better in terms of like, community upright, right? Or
yeah,
money into the system so people can actually get help or have
right,
money to go to college or to buy houses or,
right.
whatever, these people need.
Yeah,
Um, and like I remember watching like boat races. I
yeah,
remember going with my friends to the local powwow. I remember 360 rap battles at the local YMCA
Yeah.
on the reservation, those sort of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and those are all events that kind of shape you
Yeah.
because you're with people who don't look like you,
Yeah.
and you get to draw from those inspirations and make your own conclusions, I feel like.
Yeah. So I hear that it's tough because of the socioeconomic part of it. As
Mhm.
far as this heritage and, even I still go back to, like, you're taking vacations to listen from the elders. Looking and reflecting back on that, was there something about the culture that you, like, profoundly impact you as, like, "Oh, growing up, like, I didn't understand it now, but, like, they get it. They understand how important it is to honor your elders." Maybe that's an example. Are there a couple insights there that you have that you, reflect back on and are appreciative of?
I
And if not, it's totally
no,
cool.
no, I just remember, like, you know, normal schooling and all that, but there would be events where that would always be sponsored by the tribe.
Mhm.
And so they would come in and be like, "We want to recognize A, B, and C because they're amazing people and they're doing so well in the school." And my thought is, I will never be one of those people.
Hmm,
Yeah.
interesting.
Like they're going out of their way to make sure that people from that tribe, even though I'm required to attend this assembly, right?
Ah,
Like my day is being
right,
controlled, being
right,
put into these events that are happening around me
right,
because
right.
and I will never get to fully be included
Mhm,
in that space. And
right,
so I am literally a fly on the wall, a cog in the machine, a
right.
bystander watching.
Yeah, and that's so interesting because there's so many different places in that world where people feel that same thing, right? And I think it's awesome that you shared this insight because there are so many people that think, "Oh, this is just the way it is," when it's when
Mhm.
it's like, "No, that's the way it is for you." But there
Yeah,
are many other people that interpret your situation as completely different, right? And
yeah.
I think this is a good insight, and more people should have it. But I think then again, there's just extremes to everything this day and age, and I think it's always gray in the middle somewhere. Um, I think we might have gone to extremes on some ends recently, and now we're going to extremes on other ends really recently. And it's like, why can't we all just kind of take and pull from these experiences like you had and come out with like a level-headed thought process? But I guess it's the internet. I don't know. We talk about this a lot on this show. Any other things you want to share insights about that experience? Because if not, we can move on. I know I
I,
talked.
I I think I think we should move on.
Yeah. So I think I'm very interested before we get to like high school and tinkering. Um, kind of any mantras or stuff that as you were growing up, you really started to like reflecting back, starting to grab hold of. Whether that was be a good person, pay it forward, or you know, make sure that you deeply think about saying reading's important. What were some of these things that you were learning as you grew throughout this time period?
I think it took a lot of inspiration from comic books.
Yeah. Okay. Talk to me about that.
Um, so in my family runs this very specific gene that not many people have. I've been quoted like 70 people in the world have this thing. It is known as the LRP5 mutation.
Hmm.
And when you're a kid, you're always like, "Man, I really wish I had superpowers."
Yeah.
And then to find out that, oh, hey, you might actually have superpowers.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a total mind fuck a little bit.
Hmm.
And so for anybody who doesn't know what this is um, I have a quote unquote unbreakable skeleton.
Yeah.
And so the first person to ever like be discovered with this mutation, this dude was in a car accident, and the car wrapped around his body, and I think it was like in the Midwest. And they were like, "Man, why aren't you dead? How did you not break a bone?" And they released him from the hospital, and he went to the local like college in that area, and they did a bone density test, and he had an 8x skeleton, or 8 people worth of bone mass in his body.
So wild.
And apparently this story became like well known in the area, and this guy named M. Night Shyamalan
Yeah.
read the newspaper article, or so I've been told, and that was the inspiration for the movie Unbreakable with Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
I have what is called I have a 3x skeleton, so I have 3 people worth of bone mass in my body.
Okay, so there's varying degrees of unbreakable.
Yeah, it's not, across the board, it's not the same. But
Right.
if you and I were both into a car accident, my chance of living is much higher than yours. So,
Right. Because
yeah,
you're 3x. I mean,
yeah.
is 8x top tier, or do you even know what X?
I don't know what the limit is.
You don't know what X is top
I
tier.
can only speak for my family,
Mhm,
my lineage.
mhm.
No male in my family has broken a bone in 5 generations
It's wild.
in the direct succession line for myself.
Right.
There's a good chance my son has it as well.
That's
We
cool.
actually had to go see a genetic counselor when we got pregnant. And it does a couple of other things. My metabolism is really, really high. Like
Uh,
I'm turning 40 in August. And I still feel like I'm in my early, my mid 20s maybe.
you don't look like you're turning 40.
Yeah.
We'll put it at that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Also, I just think that's probably like personality and demeanor.
No. No. No, I think like complexion and just like you're a very glowy dude, man. You're a good-looking, glowy dude. Of course.
Thanks. My wife keeps calling me, and I was like,
It's
I
totally
told
cool.
you I was.
Do you wanna nah, that's totally cool. Do you wanna take a second?
No,
Not
no,
the end of the world.
I told her like,
Okay.
hey, yeah, I warned you, babe.
It's alright, it's alright. So, you learned that you're basically a superhero at what age, though?
uh, so what basically happened is from somewhere between 8th and 9th grade.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Do you need a moment, bro? It's totally cool. Just step away. Step away. I entertain the camera all day long. Just take a moment. It is all good.
no, she wants me to go upstairs, put the baby away, and that's going to take an hour. So that
Mm.
would effectively end this show.
Well, you
Yeah.
know what we could do is
Uh,
if you really gotta go do the
it's
thing, it's
it's
okay. It's okay, dude. Because listen, we already got some Indian reservation upbringing
mhm.
and tribalism, which I loved. And we're just about to start your exoskeleton story. We can do this again, dude. It is not the end of the world because I know how important family is. So this is what we're gonna do.
Let's go
We're
for
gonna do
another 20 minutes. How about that?
no, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna let you go, bro, and I'm gonna let you take care of the family. And it is okay. Do not feel bad at all. It's no big deal. This is what we're gonna do, though. This is what I will ask you to do.
Sure.
So wind it down. It's because I want to make a clip of this, and I'll give you 2 minutes or less because we will restart this totally over. Except we won't go like, hey, tell me the beginning of your childhood. We'll start at this kind of exoskeleton story next time, but 2 minutes or less. And I know this is a big question for you, but I want to be able to make a short out of this and put it out this week.
Mhm.
What does the metaverse really mean, dude? Just set it straight. Just set
The
it straight for us.
The metaverse is a theoretical byproduct of the third generation of the internet, or Web3. When people use the term Web3, they're usually talking about cryptocurrency, blockchain, and NFTs, and that's technically incorrect, but it's also correct because those themselves are third generation web technologies, and that's any sort of technology that becomes popularized in the third generation of the internet, right?
Mhm.
The metaverse should be so as you use the internet with a browser, you can go from one website to another website completely free. Like you don't have to close down the browser to go to another website.
Mhm.
But with virtual worlds, you kind of do, right? You have
Yeah.
to unload a virtual world. You got to load up a new one. You got to install a package, that sort of thing. Well,
Yeah.
inside the metaverse, you should be able to basically essentially have a browser. A video game world will pop up, this virtual world, this interoperable virtual space. And then you can open up a new door and walk through it and be in another virtual world owned by another entity on another
Yeah.
server anywhere else in the world. And
Ready
that
Player One
level
type
of
of stuff, right?
connectivity, yeah, that level of connectivity just doesn't exist yet.
Yes.
So a couple years ago, I authored a paper called the Immersive Internet Scaling Model. And in this paper, I laid out that there are 3 levels of the metaverse. The first is your experience level. That's your video game, that's your LAN, that's your, whatever the experience is, right? And almost like imagine that like a ball, like you're coming into contact with it. Now, if you have a whole bunch of balls in a pit, you're in a ball pit, right?
Uh,
And you can jump in, you can interact, you can throw balls around within this ball pit. And that is the platform
uh,
that holds all those virtual worlds together.
yeah.
And Matthew Ball called it a virtual world cluster or a meta galaxy. So you go meta world, meta
Mhm.
galaxy, right?
Yeah.
And then, but if you want 2 different ball pits to like go from one to the other, you need an extra layer, right?
Yeah.
And so that would be the entire internet. And so that would be the metaverse. And that's why there's only one metaverse. So
Gotcha.
anytime somebody goes, I'm building a metaverse or come check out our metaverse,
Mhm.
they're technically incorrect.
Yeah. No, I love it, and that is a fantastic explanation. And with that being said, brother, I'm gonna let you go take care of the most important thing in life, metaverse or not, which is family. We will
Uh,
link back up and we will figure it out, dude. No big deal whatsoever. Go take care of the thing that absolutely matters.
all right, buddy.
All
I'll
right,
talk to
bud.
you soon.
All right. Later, man. And with that being said, Mikey G and Eugene are out.